Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Larry Porch II. How you doing tonight?
Mark, I'm still at it. Alive, breathing, fat, happy. All that good stuff. How about you?
I'm doing okay. What was this I walked in on a while ago about a bucket truck and falling out?
Oh, no. No, we had a pole broke during the storm, and they removed the pole and attached the strand back on the other ends where they set another pole, and it was loose. I was on a ladder, and it gave about 4 foot. Enough to make you pucker up. Oh, yeah.
Oh, not good.
No, but hey, I made it down happy, healthy, and safe, so that's all that matters. That's where that nice belt comes in.
Yeah, I remember wearing the harness.
Yeah.
Well, we had a fun weekend last weekend, and we're going to split these shows up into 2 parts, but tonight we're going to have Spencer Jamison on. So why don't you go ahead and introduce Spence?
Well, I think everybody knows Spencer. He's a regular here. He's been in the chat a whole lot, and he come up with this brainiac idea of a bucket list that he wanted to go to LBL, and we were nice enough to tag along with him. I can't say that we took him, but we tagged along with him anyway. Spencer, what do you have to say about all that?
Brainiac, huh? I did have a bucket list, and I'm glad y'all were able to participate in some of it. It was great to finally get to see LBL after hearing so much about it and everything.
So what were your initial thoughts about LBL?
I mean, the size of it was a little bit daunting. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that big whenever I drove in there. But I'm surrounded by mountains and everything, so, you know, I'm kind of used to looking at all that and going, man, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm glad you guys had narrowed it down to, you know, roughly some areas to camp at and start with and everything. It was beautiful. My first time seeing a armadillo and a wild hog, because we don't have them here in Virginia, not yet, but
they're coming.
Yeah, I know.
What's funny is LBL didn't have any wild hogs 15, 20 years ago, and somebody let some feral hogs loose or something, and they've evidently took off, and I guess LBL's just going to sit back and let them overpopulate. I don't know, because I've not heard anything about a hunting season or anything about it.
Well, that one that we saw was big enough, so I suspect they're doing fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we've seen them on every end, pretty much. So, on the Tennessee side, the Cumberland River side, and in the middle. So, they're all over it. So, it's going to be a major problem. But it's some good food for a booger.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're sporting your old head tonight after all those stories and man dogs running amok out there And
Mark, excuse me for a second. Make sure you got the music off, please. Somebody said to turn that off.
Oh, the music is off, but I kind of like that music, Larry.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't hear it, but somebody said they were still hearing it, so I was just checking. That's all.
So, why don't you give us some more insight of what you thought about LBL?
Okay. Well, I mean, the way I got into the whole Bigfoot boogering thing was through the Outlaws. So listening to them, LBL was a major hot spot. And then, if you do a little research, I mean, you have everybody and their brother saying that LBL is a hot spot and they're all over the place. And you're going to see them as soon as you step out of the car and they're just everywhere. Whenever I got there, a couple hours before everybody except for Bama, I was taken back by the size of it, and all the roads just going everywhere into nowhere, which is really nice because, you want to find somewhere that's, kind of remote and desolate or whatnot. Well, LBL has a ton of that. The landscape seemed perfect for what we were doing, as far as I could tell. The landscape seemed ideal for it and everything, with all the creeks and the waterways and whatnot. I wasn't overly spooked by it. I certainly didn't see boogers around every tree or lurking around every corner. But it looked like a great place. Whenever I got there, I mean, we got out and, well, I met Bama first, and which that was awesome, just meeting him. And we got out and got to walk around and talk and get to know each other and everything. And we stumbled upon some stuff. And but, the stories that you hear about it are very ominous and very much like it's a dark, creepy place that anything could jump out at any moment or whatnot. I had almost the exact opposite experience from it. I mean, it looked like the perfect place to, if I was just going there to camp and hike or whatnot, I mean, it looked ideal for that. And I really liked the layout of it and the different topographic features that it had and everything. And the environment, it was great for camping, I thought, other than all the bugs. There was a heck of a lot of bugs everywhere, but I mean, it was beautiful to me. It was not what I envisioned. I'm glad that it was the way that it was. I think a lot of people that have never been there have a misconception of what it's like. That's what I got from it. Y'all just want to keep on talking, or?
Yeah, you just keep on talking, Spencer. No, you had an interest in the story of the beast of LVL, and we took time to ride to that general spot. And I'm sure Mark told you the story. What was your perception of that? And don't grin so big.
Man, y'all are going to make me blow everybody's ship out of the water here.
Just tell it how you saw it.
Right.
Okay. I don't know anything about the Beast of LBL other than what I've seen on YouTube and heard other people talk about or whatnot. And I'm not a huge man dog or what do you call those daggone things? Dog man. I'm not a huge fan / believer in them anyway. One mystery is enough for me. Yeah. I'm good with boogers. Man, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna tell this from my perspective.
Yes, that's what we want to hear is from your perspective.
Okay. the story of the Beast of LBL, where, well, the first story, where the family got mutilated at the campsite and everything. That's a really horrifying story. I mean, if you think about it, and I've heard it told, you know, not just by Kumbo, but by a couple different people on YouTube or whatnot. I think they're mostly retelling Kumbo's version of it. But it's a pretty scary story. Whenever you see the location, and everybody's going to have different feelings about this, but I mean, for me, if I was a big old monster trying to sneak up and kill a bunch of people, I wouldn't do it where there's a main thoroughfare or highway a couple 100 yards this way, and the main road going through the campground right there, and, you know, people that are drunk on fishing boats right down there a couple 100 yards. The location didn't seem to me like it matched the story. And before everybody gets mad at me for saying that and ruining everything, that's just me. That's just my opinion. It didn't seem like a likely location. I think the time that the incident was supposed to happen, the first one with the campers, was right before sunset. You know, it was in the early spring. So there was still daylight out. And, you know, we were there and the leaves were on. The foliage was already up. And I mean, it was pretty visible all the way around, even with the leaves up and everything. And, you know, so if it happened in early spring and it was still daylight out and there's a main road right there going through LBL, and there's the main road for the campground that used to be there right there, and the location where it sits on top of the hill with the backdrop where you can see everything and everything would be silhouetted. It just, I don't know. It didn't bother me. It didn't seem like a spooky place. It didn't give me any goosebumps. And I don't know. I kind of walked away feeling like I believe in the story a little bit less, not more.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Well, I know Larry and I have tromped all through those woods on both sides of that gravel road in the middle of the night by ourselves. And one time, I didn't realize we were going to be out so late. And I didn't even have a flashlight. And Larry basically had a little light on his cap. And so, and I don't know, we walked 30 minutes or so. And was probably a couple of 100 yards from the truck. Actually walked down to where the road turns and goes down. Walked where the pill boxes were. And
why you laugh when you say that?
Because I'm kind of like Spencer. I don't get creeped out there. I just don't get creeped out. What's your thoughts, Larry?
My thoughts are that I've said enough about that story, and I don't like making people mad, but I'm one of them that's got to see it to believe it. And I don't want to see me get my head ripped off of LBL. But if I see you or Spencer, if that happens to y'all, then I'll believe
it. Well, you know, stories are good. And I wasn't there when supposedly it happened. So it's not for me to judge whether it happened or not. And if folks want to believe it, then, you know, that's their opinion, and I'm all for it. And, you know, if anybody wants to go see where supposedly this happened, I know Larry and I would be more than willing to take anybody there and show them and tell them the story, because it is a fascinating story.
It is.
And
it's more fascinating to think that it could have happened.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. All right, Spencer. So you arrived and Bama arrived about the same time. And I dropped a pin for y'all to go camp at. And what happened? Mark got there?
Is that an option? Can I blame it all on Mark?
Yeah.
Yes, it was Mark's fault.
We didn't exactly camp where I dropped a pin, but the other location was fine.
Except for all the daggone bugs.
I think that was going to happen no matter where we went.
Yeah. No, we had 2 pins to look at, one where to pull off the road and one where to camp at. And whenever you get in there, like most places that we go, well, that I go, to look for boogers and everything, you're so far out that you don't really have phone reception half the time. And whenever we got there and the GPS took us to the place where we were going to pull off the road at, we couldn't reload the GPS to find the mark for the campsite that you had marked. So we walked around in there, trying to find the location. We stumbled upon other stuff, and then we backed out. And we waited for somebody else to get there because we just weren't sure if we were in the right spot or not.
Right. It's kind of lucky that y'all didn't go there, because I had it planned where we could drive the vehicles up at the edge of that field. And the next day we'd pulled up in that field just to go over there and look. And there was 2 park rangers that come up in one vehicle, and they were walking around looking for us.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fishy to me. But I don't know why they didn't leave the note, but that guy was... I know they've had a lot of problems with people pulling in the fields with 4-wheel drive vehicles and stuff and tearing up the fields. So I don't know if they thought we were up to that, or maybe it's the marijuana planting season at LBL. I have no idea, but they were looking for us for a reason other than parking more than a car length off the road.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And then they saw we were a couple of yahoos with cameras and all that.
Bigfoot stickers on our vehicles.
Yeah. They didn't say nothing about it, though. They were nice and told us that we wasn't allowed to park off the road more than a car length. So that was good, because I surely didn't want a ticket. But we'd have been back in that other field we wouldn't have went through any planted area, but we were going to stay on the grassy area that they hadn't cultivated. But that didn't work, and it's a good thing it didn't.
Well, we want to remind everybody that's in our chat that we've got Sally Olin that's going to be sending Larry and I your questions. So if you will put them in all caps, then she will shoot them to us, and then we'll direct them to Spencer. We'll put Spencer on the spot. And I was really glad to see Bama on here tonight. He messaged me earlier and said that he had Wi-Fi problems and wasn't going to be able to, he was just going to be able to listen. And I thought, wow, me and Larry and Spencer can talk smack about Bama tonight. He can't say nothing back, but he's on here, and we're glad that you got your Wi-Fi straightened out.
Yep. It was good to meet Bama, and great to have Spencer back in the camp again. I know I was wore out on Bigfooting, and the whole group, Mark, Shelley, Debbie, Spencer, and Bama, that just recharged my soul to go out with them and Booger.
Yeah.
It was a good time. And now we need to let Spencer talk about how it went on the first night once we got set up.
Well, I think on the first night after we got set up, it was pretty much just us around camp, if I recall. I don't think we did a whole lot.
No, we didn't, because I was wore out.
Yeah, other than catch up or whatnot. But I will say, to your point, like, everybody knows I go out alone. So whenever I go out, you know, I park in the area and have to walk in, you know, sometimes pretty far or whatnot. But for me, it's kind of, even though I enjoy it and it's something I want to do, I'm paying attention and I'm focused. It's more like work. It's not so much me out there having fun. I'm looking for stuff, you know. And this was more of a change of pace. At least on the first night, it was a lot more, you know, just laid back and fun and getting to see everybody again and everything. And I had a really good time. The whole trip, to me, other than the drive there and back, was really just fun and hanging out and everything. I failed to make fire with a daggone fire roll again.
Hey, like I told you, Mark videoed me striking that striker over 100 times before I ever got fire. And then we walked away from it and it went out like 5 minutes later.
He just knew I was going to bust him out on the video on that, but
it wouldn't have bothered me. No.
I know it wouldn't have bothered you. Spencer, let's back up a little bit.
Uh-oh.
And let's talk about when you and Bama parked when you first got there and y'all were waiting on us and y'all went out. Y'all found some pretty amazing tree manipulations where y'all went. Just kind of fill in the audience of your perspective of what y'all saw with the tree manipulations.
Okay, yeah. I skipped over that part. I wasn't sure if you were ready for that or not. Yeah. Bama was already there whenever I got there, and he was parked pretty much at the area where Larry had dropped the pin for us to pull off the road. And like I said, we didn't have internet signal. Neither one of us did, so we couldn't follow the other pin into where the camp was supposed to be. So I met Bama and Moose. Moose is my buddy, even if he does growl at me every single time he sees me. I mean, every single time. 500 times in one day. I think that's just his way of saying hello. But I met Bama, which was awesome, and it wasn't 10 minutes. And we were like, hey, let's go see if we can find the campsite, because we had written directions kind of how to get to the campsite. And we went to where we thought it was. And Bama was looking in the woods, and he said, there's a pond here. And I said, oh, cool. You know, a pond, water source. Let's go in there. And it was right inside the wood line. It wasn't very far. I mean, maybe 15 yards, if that, inside the wood line from that cornfield that had just been planted with corn. And we went in there and looked at the pond, and you could see ripples. So I think it was a freshwater pond. I think it was being fed by a spring. And whenever I saw that, I thought, you know, freshwater source or whatever. And we didn't have anything else to do. We were waiting on everybody. We knew it'd be a couple hours. So we walked around the edge of the pond. I mean, just as soon as we got to the other side of that little pond, we started seeing stuff that, you know, I consider to be a little bit odd, a little bit unnormal or whatnot. And we tried to kind of go in the direction that we thought it was leading, and we found other stuff. And it wasn't very long after we were in there found several things, 3 or 4 things that seemed kind of odd. And I heard, I'll let Bama tell it from his perspective, but I thought I heard some kind of unidentifiable noise coming from out in the woods. You know, was it a knock? Was it a break? I don't know. But I thought I heard something, and then I thought to myself, you know, maybe we should back out of here and wait for everybody else. You know, not wanting to drive anything out of there if it was there. And I had already seen enough to make me think that maybe it was possible manipulation. But I hate to jump to those conclusions. So I always want other people to see and maybe give their input on it and everything. So we thought it was a good idea to back out of there. We went in a different area of woods, and we didn't have anything happen in the other area of woods that we were in, other than I got loaded with ticks. I mean, loaded. And then we came back out and pretty much sat by the trucks and got to know each other, and Moose got to growl at me some more, and we waited for everybody else to show up. And that was pretty much it until everybody else showed up and we set up camp.
Well, it was. Now, we have been out with you before, and I just want to brag on Spencer a minute.
I don't know.
Some people just every time a twig breaks or a vocalization or whatever, they automatically throw it in that Bigfoot box.
Don't talk about me that way. I'm sitting right here.
But Spencer is so grounded, and he is. You've really only been into this just a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. But your learning curve is just amazing. And what you have recently gotten into reviewing audio and sending us clips, and Spencer is right on point. It takes a special person to be able to review audio, and because you have to have patience, you have to get inside that bubble and to be able to listen, because so many little sounds can be under the ambient noises of the day or night, such as crickets and insects and things like that. And so why don't you give us your view of what it's like to review audio?
All right. For what I know of it, I don't know. I got interested in this subject probably closer to 3 years ago, but have only really been going out in the woods looking specifically for this a couple years now. And I've only been doing audio for, I guess, right at a year now. In my opinion, audio is probably the single biggest tool that we can use. It always gives you something, in my opinion. And it's hard to sit there and teach yourself to be patient and listen to it, to actually listen to it, not just scroll through it, but to actually listen to it. It's you got to find other things to do to occupy yourself or whatnot. And it's hard to tell yourself to calm down and not get overexcited whenever you hear the least little noise that's different than, you know, the normal background noise or whatnot. But I think audio is a invaluable tool in what we do. And I don't think it even really matters so much like the recorder that you use and the setup that you use. You need to get a recorder if you're interested in this subject, in my opinion. You need to get a recorder, set it out, get acquainted with it and how everything works, like Audacity, and just take your time and get into it and listen, because it teaches so much. And whenever you hear something that really is different and you're actually sitting there watching it on the screen and looking at the frequency signature and all that kind of stuff, and it's matching the parameters of what we think of as like a booger possibly or whatnot, it's exciting. And it doesn't take much. I mean, I'm still new enough to the field that it doesn't take much to get me excited. So if I hear a vocal that sounds suspicious, like it could actually be something, I get excited about it. I'd like to see one too, but and I've got all the gear and gadgets for that. Well, some of it, and I've used other people and everything, and that would be great. But I don't know why. I just really enjoy audio. I don't enjoy listening to it for 8 and 12 hours a day, but whenever you hear something that seems like it could be something, I get all excited. I enjoy it.
Tell us what kind of equipment that you use to gather evidence.
I mean, like most everybody, I've got a few recorders. I've got a Tascam. I've got an Olympus, cheap little Olympus that I use most of the time. I've got a Zoom H2N, which I will say the Zoom probably gives the clearest audio out of everything that I have. It's really clear. I'm not sure if the microphones, because they are so clear, I'm not sure if it seems to me like some of the cheaper ones, like the microphones pick up noise further away, but the Zoom is a lot more discernible, a lot more clear. It takes some messing with it, fidgeting with it to get it on the right setting for your environment and everything. I've got night vision. I've used other people's FLIR, but to be perfectly honest, I would almost rather save up and spend more money on like serious thermals than the lower end thermals. They're good for what they are. I'm not trying to knock them in any way. They're certainly a valuable tool no matter which way you cut it or what kind it is, but they seem to be a little limited. If you're talking about the FLIR Scouts or whatnot, they seem to be a little limited. So I would like to have a really high-end thermal. But even then, I'm not positive that they would make a huge difference because, well, I guess we'll talk about the stops later. But like on one of the stops that we were at, maybe it was just me, but maybe something was there. And if it was, I couldn't see it. And it's been that case every time with me. I mean, it's been that case with night vision. I have, a fairly decent pair of night vision. And then, I guess I've got all the cameras and recorders and action cams and all that kind of stuff. But again, the recorders to me, dollar for dollar, and for the time that they're out there, give more results. They keep going while you're asleep. You can drop them off in areas and go away. In fact, some of the more exciting stuff I have is dropping them off and going away. And whenever I come back and pick them up, I can hear a wood knock every now and then, after I dropped them off and drove away or right before I get there to pick them up and stuff like that. I mean, it gives you a sense of, hey, I'm doing something right. I'm in the right area or whatnot. And I don't get that with cameras or night vision or FLIR or whatnot because I've never seen anything through it.
Okay, we're going to back up just a little bit because Doug Schrader asked, tell us a little overview of where you are from and what you do for a living, Spencer.
All right. I'm from all over the place, but I grew up in Carolina. I live in Southwest Virginia, in Bedford County, Virginia, right now. So I go to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a lot of my research right now. And I mean, I've had a lot of jobs and a lot of different venues. I mean, I go out all kinds of different ways. I have experience in wilderness survival and land nav and all that kind of stuff, kind of all semi-professionally. And just like a lot of people, I've spent a lot of time in the woods with hunting and fishing and camping and hiking. I pretty much grew up camping. My grandparents raised me, but my parents, they had a camper at a campground, so I grew up every weekend at campgrounds all over throughout North Carolina and Southern Virginia and everything. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the woods, but till a few years ago, I didn't really think much about this subject. And then I saw a couple things that made me think that there might be some legitimacy to it. And I started looking around, and sure enough, I started seeing signs that other people were seeing, and got to meet other people that were interacting in it. And now I'm like full steam ahead on the subject, and just look at it's really kind of taken over a lot of what I do and everything. It's just captured me so much.
It kind of does that to you.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, let's let Spencer. I don't know if you heard anything the first night after we went to sleep or not. Did you hear any of the vocals or?
Not after we were asleep.
Okay. Well, Debbie's reviewed some of that, so I won't ruin what it could have been that walked into camp, because Bama said he heard it walk between our tents and around his and then go back. And Debbie heard it live and woke me up, and I heard it too. And we did hear some distant vocals that we'd just have to get them downloaded and look at them on a spectrogram. And I don't even know if they picked up that well. So did you have anything that you heard the first night we were there?
Not that I heard live, other than some possible noise whenever Bama and I were in the woods before everybody else got there. Now, I've reviewed my recording of the audio for everything pretty much. I'll probably go back and listen to it all again. But on the first night, I did hear some scuffling, and it was louder. I want to say it was louder on the first night than it was on the second night. My recorder was over on the side of the camp that I was set up on, and everybody else's recorder was over on the side that they were set up on. So it would make sense that on my recording, there's, different noise than what is on everybody else's. And I'll also say my recorder was close to the creek. Number one, because it was on my side. That's where I was sleeping. That's where my tent was. And also because, in my mind, I think if I was going to come into camp, I would definitely want the sound of the creek covering any noise that I might make. So I set it up over there, just thinking that was a good spot to put the recorder out in. So I heard some scuffling on the first night. I've just gone through all this stuff, so it's kind of messed up in my head. I just went through like several days of recording all at one time. I don't want to say anything that's wrong. I'm pretty sure the scuffling through camp that I heard, which was louder, was on the first night, and then on the second night, it was very faint. I thought I heard a little bit of noise, possible vocals on the second night, but it's hard to say. I mean, it takes more looking into at this point.
All right, Mark, do we go to day 2, or you got an agenda here?
Well, I tell you what, let's move ahead, and we can come back if we want to when we went out to make locator calls.
Oh my goodness!
The first night,
That was
and
the
I mean
second
the second night, and went at our second stop when they first started up. I was kind of in doubt whether if it was just really distant coyotes, because they were distant, but they seemed to move closer to us.
No, they didn't seem to. They did.
They did, and you will see that on the spectrogram.
You would have seen it on the flare if I'd have recorded it.
Spencer, tell us your thoughts and kind of set up the first vocalizations when we got to Firefly Landing, which was our second stop.
Okay.
First, talk about how beautiful it was with all them fireflies out there.
Actually, it really was. I've never seen anything like that. That was just a huge, huge field, and the fireflies, lightning bugs, whatever you want to call them. I mean, there was millions of them, and I've kind of seen it like that before. But Bama was talking about something earlier about the fireflies doing it in synchrony, and it was almost like that. I mean, they were all kind of like, when they lit up, they were all lighting up across that field and in the tree line, and you could even see a little bit into the woods. There was just so many of them that lit up, and then they would, go down, and then they would light up again. That was gorgeous. And I think a lot of people were so busy, everybody was looking at the daggone fireflies, and we didn't really have any action at the first stop or whatnot. So I think that whenever the vocals actually happened, it caught everybody off guard. And then one of us made calls. Thank God it wasn't me, because I suck at them. Larry actually makes really good calls, and man, whenever the vocals came back, I know you can't read anything into it, and you're supposed to sit back and say, we don't know what that was. Let's wait till we get back and review the audio. It just sent chills down my spine whenever that first howl came out. And I will also say that, talking so much about audio and everything and dealing with this, what I assume you're going to show in a minute, the recordings don't do it justice.
Yeah.
You don't get the feeling, you don't get the atmosphere, you don't get and all of that is open to interpretation anyway. But you don't hear the volume and the tone of this stuff on the recordings the same way that you do whenever you're live. Whenever you're there and you're, several hundred yards away, and then it moves closer, I mean, it's a whole different feeling, and the recording just doesn't do it justice. There's no other way to describe it. But whenever the first vocals actually came out, man, there was a second there where I was going, that does not sound like a coyote to me. And I mean, maybe it is, but it didn't right then. And as it kept going in that long, drawn out same tone, I got really excited. Like I said, the hair was up on the back of my neck because it just did not sound like a coyote to me. And after listening to a bunch of recordings for the past, year or whatnot, it sounded like what I think boogers possibly sound like. I'm not saying that it is or that it didn't, but it definitely, it got my attention. And I think it got Bama's attention. Pretty much everybody else that was there. I mean, that's probably the most impressive live vocalization that I've ever heard, which isn't saying much, but for me, that's the most impressive live vocalization that I've ever heard.
Well, let's.
Uh-oh.
I want to brag on Spencer and Bama because
I thought you were going to brag on me.
Nobody's bragging on you.
I'm going to brag on you about not falling off that pole today.
Yeah.
But one thing that is, I guess, mine and Shelly Reed's pet peeve is when a vocalization happens, and you will hear it on so many clips on the internet. People will go, "Did you hear that? What was that?" And they're talking during the vocalizations. But when the calls first started, I spun around and looked at Spencer and Bama, and they both pointed in the direction that it was coming from and did not speak. And I didn't even talk to Bama. Kind of our protocols, what we do when vocalizations happen. But to me, it just really showed how grounded they both were whenever possible activity started ramping up. So with that, let's go ahead and play the first vocalizations
Alrighty.
that we heard. So we're going to play them now. One thing that it seems like that I always notice whenever we're reviewing audio is when what we believe are boogers that are vocalizing, it stirs up the coyotes. And it was just really amazing. And I had my doubts when the first vocalization started up. And Spencer recorded these. And when he did, and he clipped them out and sent them to me. And I looked at them on the spectrogram and I thought, man, that's just where we want to see them, as far as the frequency signature goes and where the hertz are on them. And so that was really exciting when Spencer sent me these clips a couple of days ago.
The sad thing about the vocals is usually the possible booger will begin, and you can tell when you first hear it that it's not a coyote. But like you said, the coyotes start up and they drown out all that sound, or it blends in with it. So people that hear it on the audio hear the back end and know that's absolutely coyotes.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're listening to and not what we're hearing. And like Spencer said, the recording doesn't do them justice. Whenever you're standing there, you get the full scope of everything. And the end of that vocalization, it wasn't 10 seconds, and we heard a faint reply from the opposite end of the road that I don't know if y'all got on audio or not, because it was barely, I mean, I'm hard of hearing anyway, but I could barely hear it myself. It wasn't real low, but it was definite reply to the other one or to us or whatever. But that first vocal was awesome, but I don't know, was it 10 minutes later, I was looking up there with a thermal and saw something step out of the woods, two things, and I turned around to tell Shelly to look with her FLIR, because I had a FLIR, and at the time I turned back around where these vocals come from, there was one thing standing there and the other had went back in the woods, and by the time Shelly looked, the one I was seeing on my FLIR was easing back into the woods and it never came out again. But after they both entered into the woods, that's when that second vocal happened, and that second vocal was freaking awesome. That's one of the wildest vocals I've ever heard.
That's a pretty good point, Larry. And Spencer made this point too, that when you're actually out in the field and the atmosphere around you, you can hear the different directions that these vocalizations are coming from. And that's what we kind of tune into when these things are going up. Now, Spencer, I want you to set up the second set of vocals that we picked up while we were out there, because it was like how we feel that they were moving in closer to us.
Okay. The first set of vocals, the first response to the calls, I think that pretty much caught everybody off guard because it was so immediate right after our calls. It was so immediate, it caught everybody off, and it was so impressive. And I think pretty much everybody that was there was like, that sounds like a booger. And then the coyotes kick in, and but we were captivated with that. So we were still kind of focused on that area or whatnot, and still in awe of the first calls whenever the second calls happened. And so then we all swing around and see the second calls. I think looking at the recordings that there might have been even a third set of calls, but they might have been more distant and maybe we didn't hear them just with our ears. It seems like there's possibly that on the recording, but it's hard to tell. But again, it's important for everybody to understand that the spot that we were in, there could have been 1,000 yards of tree line to tree line on each side. So whenever the one vocal started, we're looking way over there, and whenever the reply vocals came from the other side, then we're immediately turning around looking over there. And then I can't quite remember if the first group, if that's the one that moved closer, if the second one was the one that moved closer. I can't quite remember. I remember spinning around and looking and going, oh my God, they're getting even closer and louder. I just wasn't quite sure of where it came from, and it all kind of runs together in my head, which is why you need the recorders, and you need to do your job and sit there and listen to them and record the times and everything, which I don't have it right in front of me right now. But man, it's just, I can't stress enough that seeing the recordings on YouTube, on one of these shows, on anything like this, it doesn't do it justice for whenever you're there and it actually kicks off and catches your attention. The feeling is different. The ambient noise is different. Whenever you see a clip that's just a few seconds long, you haven't been standing in that spot like we do, where we're standing there for 10, 12 minutes, letting things die down, and we get used to the bugs that are there or the birds that are making noise or whatever is in that area. So it's hard for someone watching a video to appreciate, like, the bugs getting quiet and the other ambient noise dying down and the volume and whatnot of these calls and the tone that it has. The recorders, as good as they are, can't quite capture everything that is put out whenever these vocals actually happen in real life. And to me, they're impressive, they're scary, they're captivating, and they tell you a whole lot. I really like the audio, and this was a perfect example in my mind of what audio can do. And I didn't see anything, but the thrill of those calls and those vocals, I mean, that was awesome. That was worth everything right there without anything else.
Okay, let's play the second set of vocalizations that happened at Firefly Landing. Now, Larry mentioned earlier about the vocalizations, and when he looked up with the FLIR, he had two thermal hits that were right there together. Now, putting that piece of the puzzle along with this audio, it almost sounds like that there was two possible boogers that were vocalizing at the same time, and that they were maybe like playing off each other. And so to me, that just kind of connect those two pieces of the puzzle with having two thermal hits and what appears to be two vocalizers going at the same time with this. And that really worked up those coyotes.
I would also say that knowing where we were, and we were right in the middle of two very large fields, our vehicles and all of us were standing out in the open, in the middle. It makes sense to me, or I can see in my head, I can understand, we did a call, something replied back, and then possibly it came out of the wood line, still several hundred yards away, but came out and looked down and said, "Oh, that's just a bunch of idiots out here yelling," and then went back in the wood line, and then the other group started up. Maybe they came out and took a look at us. But in my mind, it's logical enough to assume that they were at a higher vantage point. Maybe their eyesight's better than ours. Maybe it wasn't anything. Maybe it was deer that came out. I don't know. But it makes sense that, we did a call, something replied back, and then it came out to take a look, and we were completely exposed and saw us, and, then the ones on that side stopped and the ones on the other side replied back. I don't know, but it makes sense in my head.
At that distance, the TK Scout, you don't get a lot of definition because all you get's a little heat blip on the screen.
Yeah.
But it appeared that it walked out, and you know how a deer will turn and the heat signature will get bigger, and this didn't seem to turn and walk back in the woods. It seemed to walk out, and then it seemed to just back up. Now, that may be totally wrong. I'm just looking at a couple of pixels on a FLIR, but that's all I can say. I don't know what it was. But there was two heat signatures up there, and I couldn't tell you if they were 8 foot tall and 1,000 pounds or 2 foot tall and 50 pounds. I don't know. I just know they were two heat signatures, but whatever was behind them sure did let it rip.
It did.
Well, that's the only bad thing about this spot is that we are really exposed for where we have to park the vehicles. And so something could be 500 yards behind us and spot us, or 500 yards in front of us and spot us. And we normally like to hide our vehicles.
Normally.
But at this location, it's just not feasible to do that unless we want to. I feel like even if we did hide them and we took a 20 or 30 minute walk to get to where we make our locator calls, that they're still going to see us out there, whether there's vehicles or not, because everybody is doing a job, whether if it's listening to audio or working the thermals, and people are moving around. And so we are just exposed at that spot, but we have had such success there that we can't help ourselves. We got to keep going back.
That's true, because this spot, it always has deer out in both the fields, and I have seen wild hogs in one of the fields there, but I have deer hunted around that woods where these things come out of, And during the fall, there's all kinds of deer sign up through there. So it's a honey hole.
Yeah.
That's all you can say. And Spencer's banned from ever going back there. I'm kidding, Spencer.
Thanks.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add to that stop at that particular area? Anything you stood out to you? Or?
The only other thing I would say about that spot is if I was a big old predatory monster and I wanted to keep an eye on everything and not let something sneak up on me, that was a good spot, because if you were in the wood line up on that little hill crest there, you had a good view of everything that would have to get to you way before it got to you. That, and if damn Ricky was there telling us all that we were going to die, that'd probably add to the ambience of the area.
I hear you on that one. Mark Nebo, we have a request to play the last set of vocals again while we're here.
Okay. When the vocalizations started slowing down and Larry and Shelley had gotten thermal hits, which we will probably show when we have Bama on in a couple of weeks. And me and Larry always kind of have that feeling that things are slowing down and they're not ramping up no more. And I eased over to Larry and said, I think that we're about done here. Do you want to go to the next spot? And he said, yeah. He goes, we're going to take them to the creepy spot. And Spencer, when we went to the third spot, give us your impressions of what it was like to go into that third spot on that dead end road where the cemetery was.
Man, I thought we really are all gonna die. that was a creepy spot for sure. I try not to let stuff like that get to me. I've talked before about the cemetery the first time I ever met y'all and how that kind of caught me off guard. And I've got this thing in my head. I guess it's just years of me being in the woods or whatnot. I guess it's one of those things where you tell yourself, like growing up, you go, there's nothing here in the dark that isn't here in the light or whatnot. And you kind of rule out, those twigs you hear popping or whatever, all the odd noises and everything. But whenever you're on something like this, you're looking for that. You're listening for that, and you're trying to determine if it actually is anything. That area was creepy going into it. It was quiet. whenever people talk about, there's no noise. There's, very little other noise, like the bugs and just the other night noise and everything. There was very little noise there. That's the spot where I don't know how to read a lot of this stuff because I'm still so new to it and everything. But that's the spot where I actually thought to myself, if something was there, it's possible that it could have been so close that it didn't make any noise, that it didn't respond because we were that far out there. And I mean, we had stuff all the way around us. It wasn't wide open. You wouldn't have seen anything coming. I mean, something could have gotten pretty close to us there and everything. It was a creepy spot. It was silent. It was away from everything. You felt like you were enclosed. I remember thinking if something pushed a tree down up here, we are screwed because there's no getting around that. I didn't really like that spot very much. It made me a little uneasy.
That's a real good observation, Spence, because as soon as we got in there and got out of the vehicles, there was no insects that were making their noise. And everywhere we went, I mean, that's all we heard for the insects. And for me, that's just one of the clues that I kind of look for, is what the other animals are doing. And it was driving in there. It's these trucks and Jeeps, just even though you're moving slow, the gravel is crunching. And that was kind of my thought when we got out and there was no insects and we made calls and did not get any responses. And it's just a gut feeling that I had that something was close by, but it knew that it was too close to do any type of response calls. And really the response calls is trying to trick them into vocalizing. And it seems like once you've been busted out, or if they know that you are the ones that are making the calls, then they're just going to sit there and they're going to watch you and observe you and just see what you do. And dadgummit, Larry, it was dark in that spot. I know you were using the FLIR, and so the FLIR will mess up your night vision. But with me not using the FLIR, and it took forever for my eyes to get adjusted because of all of the trees that were around us before. You couldn't see nothing. It was just pitch black. It was almost like you had to be careful where you were walking, or you'd run into a vehicle or run into somebody else.
That's true. I was concerned going in because the road was not in great shape. And one of those mud holes looked like a pond pretty much.
Yeah.
And I just knew I was going to pull the nose of my Jeep into it and it was going to sink up to the hood. But luckily it wasn't probably 6-8 inches deep all the way across, and it was a pretty hard gravel road underneath all the water. But I really didn't want to get all of us stuck way back in there and have to walk out or something. And luckily we didn't. But that place, like y'all, it was quiet, and I was expecting rocks to get thrown or pine cones or something like that to go on. But I know a few people heard some shuffling or noise or something.
I did.
I didn't, because luckily I can't hear that. That's why I'm so brave.
Well, tell us about what you heard, Spencer.
Man, I don't have the audio to back me up, so I don't want to say anything. I have listened to that probably 3-4 times now, just trying to find something in there that matched what I thought I heard. But it might have just been my nerves. I was on edge. But I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, I thought there was 2 times, and it was very, very extremely faint. It almost sounded like somebody whispering down in the woods. That's the best I got to describe it. It sounded like, I hate to say it because it sounds like a cliche, and other people have said it in the whole Bigfoot thing, but it sounds like somebody mumbling something where you can kind of tell that somebody's saying something, but it's just far enough away where it's unrecognizable, or it's just low enough that you can't quite make out what's being said or whatnot. And it was very brief. I mean, it was only, a couple seconds here and a couple seconds there, but twice I heard it, and I ain't gonna lie. It was on the far side. We parked on one side of the road, which the road was pretty narrow. It was on the other side of the road, coming from the other side of the road that we had parked on. And I took a couple steps towards it the second time that I heard it. And then I turned around and I thought to myself, how damn far away is everybody else? I mean, it was creepy. That was a creepy spot. My eyes never really did adjust, and I've got pretty good night vision. I mean, I could not see more than 15 feet in front of me, if that. I mean, it was dark, and looking into the woods, it was impenetrable. I mean, it was just black. And I don't know, it sounded like something whispering. I held my recorder out there. I've reviewed it several times. I can't find anything that matches it. I got nothing. That's just what I thought that maybe I might have heard. But
where did you think you heard it from? Did it come from the cemetery or from the woods?
It came from the woods. I was standing at the back of Bama's truck, and the back was facing the cemetery. It came from my right. So the wood side that was to the right of the cemetery, if you're looking at it.
Okay. Well, it wasn't no EVP then.
If it was, I didn't capture it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back that creepy spot.
Yeah, that'd be enough to stop you.
No doubt.
Well, by the time that we finished up the third spot, you get these, especially at Firefly Landing, you get this adrenaline rush of the things going on around you. And then when the adrenaline rush starts leaving, it zaps you. And everybody was really tired. But we pushed on and went to our fourth and final stop. Spencer, give us your thoughts on the fourth stop.
I mean, everything after the second stop was no comparison. The fourth stop was creepy. Looked like a good area. Well, I mean, it wasn't nearly as creepy as the third spot, but looked like a good area. Looked like a good spot. We got a lot of echo, and the calls carried really well and everything. We got return calls from something while we were there. It wasn't near as impressive to my ear as the second spot. But like you said, once you have that adrenaline dump, it kind of it hits you kind of fast how tired you are. I mean, it was already whatever 2 in the morning, low after 2 in the morning, something like that. And so I was there, I was paying attention, but I wasn't nearly as enthusiastic as I was at the second stop. It was good though. I mean, LBL is just a big place that, I mean, a lot of the area, I kept asking while we were driving, I was like, are we still in LBL? I mean, we drive 10 more miles, and I'd be like, are we still in LBL? All of the area looks really good. I mean, I guess it's just a hit or miss kind of thing. You either get responses or you don't. It's just so damn big.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go ahead and play the audio clip from the fourth and final stop. It wasn't nearly as intense as the second stop. And
it wasn't, but you know what? I was so tired by that stop. It could have walked up my face and went, and I'd have just looked at it with a spaced out look and went, all right, y'all ready to go back to camp? I'm tired. Oh, I'm getting that tired now.
Yeah.
But go on with what you were saying on stop 4. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought that was time to say boogity, boogity, boogity.
Well, the vocalizations, there again, it almost sounded like that they were coming from 2 different directions. And then, just as in the second stop, it worked up the coyotes, which were way farther away than these vocalizations that we were getting. Spencer, any thoughts on this fourth stop?
I mean, if you had never heard anything before, I imagine it would be a lot more impressive. It was good. I'm not taking anything away from it. It just didn't have the sheer volume and clarity and power and all that stuff of the second stop that we were at.
Hey, Spencer.
Yeah.
Do you remember whenever the tree fell and we were up on that mountain and
Yeah.
I just laughed?
Yeah.
It's beginning to happen to you.
Maybe.
You're starting to get jaded.
I listened to a lot of audio. So, I don't know. Maybe on the vocals, maybe it takes a little bit more. That second one, it was a combination of being out there and being amongst friends and actually being relaxed and like having a good time. And it was more about, the whole thing for me was more about seeing LBL and seeing what everybody was talking about and everything. So I was in a good mood. I was more relaxed. I was having more fun because it was more like just camping with the extra additive of maybe there's some booger stuff here. We had already found what could possibly be tree manipulations and everything. And then, man, by the time we went to the second stop and we actually got some kind of return vocal, I mean, not saying what it is, but by the time that happened, it was like my bucket was full. I was like, hey, this place is good. It's got activity. Maybe you're not going to get a 30-yard visual sighting in the middle of the day or whatnot. But I mean, I was pretty well convinced that it was active at that point. So by the time we got to the fourth stop, it was good to hear the vocals. Again, Larry can do a good job with the calls. Whenever they came in, I was impressed. I was tired. I had already seen a lot of, and heard a lot of stuff, and nothing's going to replace the second stop. So it was good. I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I got to see it and hear it and everything. That's pretty much it. That's all I got to say about it. It was still better than seeing where the supposed Beast of LBL attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Larry, we need to get to... Do we have any questions?
We got quite a few.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Sally wanted to know how long you've been studying Bigfoot.
I don't know. Not that long. Probably, I guess, right about 3 years, maybe a little over 3 years, and actually been actively looking in the woods for like a little over 2, maybe 2.5, maybe somewhere right in there.
All right. Have you observed a particular time, season, or time frame that you are aware of Bigfoot being present more than others, I guess?
I mean, yes, but I'm in the woods a lot more in the fall and in the colder months than I am in summer. I don't like the heat. I don't like the bugs.
Yeah.
So whenever I see the activity that I see, it's in the fall, but that's because that's whenever I'm in the woods.
All right. Okay. Mark, this next one's for you from Rodney Beasley. Did your cameras catch anything?
Well, we have the picture that you took with your FLIR and that you sent me.
Oh, that is of the deer that were out in the field.
Oh no, this was in the woods, in the wood line. But we are still reviewing the FLIR footage, and so when we have Bama on, we will have more FLIR footage. I know Shelley told me in reviewing hers that she feels like she picked up a thermal hit as she was turning, and I believe she said 2 different times that she picked up a thermal hit while she was recording. So we are just so careful that when we review something, because we don't want to deceive ourselves or deceive anybody else or try to turn it into a fishing story. And so we are just going to analyze it and try to see if we can debunk it. But I'm pretty confident with your gut feeling, Larry, and Shelley's gut feeling. But we just want to spend more time debunking it, and we will show it in 2 weeks when we have Bama on. But we don't. We want to do it justice whenever we do show it.
Right.
And Rodney Beasley also asked, did you make some real calls from camp?
And the answer to that is
No.
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 We did some real snoring.
Well, Rodney, one reason is this is a pretty active area. If you have seen our field evidence video with the 13 howls, this was the same area where we camped at. And we have never camped at this spot before. And when we carried the Projersky brothers there, we were standing out on the road, and Louie actually got a thermal hit of something tree peaking in the woods. And we, the next day, went back to this area with Jerry and Louie, and we do feel like we got on a booger trail there, and we followed this booger trail and found some really good signs. So if y'all haven't had a chance to watch the Projersky Brothers podcast, go back and watch that, because there is some daytime video clips in there where we look at the evidence and examine it and kind of come to the conclusion that it was not natural and that it was actually some type of tree manipulation.
And Spencer set his tent up right on that trail. All right. Lane Goodspeed asked, are there any FLIRs that are calibrated by distance? And I know the TK Scout is generally good to about 60 to 100 yards, and past that, you lose a lot of detail and the ability to really tell what you're looking at. I think the herd of deer we were looking at, they were probably 200 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could tell it was deer, but it just wasn't great detail, and you can really see the pixels in the TK Scout at that distance and all that. But some of the higher end FLIRs, they do go out a greater distance, and you are able to get more detail and all that. But I mean, Mark, he won't spend $35,000 on it, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll keep trying.
Well, I don't want to sound like that we're bashing the TK Scout. Now, the TK Scout is a good tool, and it does have a purpose.
Yeah.
And it is the same purpose that whenever Miss Vicky goes out with us and she's using her parabolic, and when Shelly and Debbie have their microphones hooked up to headphones to enhance the hearing, we want to be able to see what the naked eye cannot see, and we want to hear what the naked ear cannot see, because there is nothing worse that if you are in tight quarters like where we were at that third spot, you do not want something belly crawling up on top of you and getting close to you.
Well, that's where you're wrong. I do.
I just wanted to stand up. You know, yeah. I don't care about the belly crawling.
Well, I don't either.
I want it to stand up to where we can get a visual. But I really do not. What is what's creepy to me, is whenever, like, let's say, and I don't know how many times this has happened, Shelly will ease over to me and tap me on the shoulder and start whispering in my ear, something is right here. It's on top of us. And I can't hear it. But with her having the headphones hooked up to the microphone, she can hear what everybody else cannot hear. And that's what's really important about a team that goes out. And that, and that's why I was bragging about Spencer and Bama, is just the way that they conducted themselves in the field. Very little talking. If it is, it's whispers in somebody's ear. They're not sitting there pacing the gravel road and crunching and deteriorating what audio that we might capture. We're communicating using hand signals, and it was just a great night out.
It was. I was wore plumb out.
Okay, do we have any more questions, Larry?
Debbie wants you to talk about the meet and greet and the weekend that we're going to have it, and when Spencer's coming back.
Well, I saw on the chat to where Debbie's been mentioning it, and we won't give the location right now, but what Debbie is looking at is November the 7th. And so mark your calendars for November the 7th, because unless, this corona crap ramps back up or whatever, but I'm going to tell you, the months of October and November and December are really good months to be out at LBL. And we want to put faces to the different people that are in the chat room, that comment on our podcast, and we just want to take everybody out and show them a good time. If you want to see where supposedly the Beast of LBL happened, we will be happy to take you there and show you and give you the tour of the place.
We might let Spencer do that.
Yeah, I'd be a great tour guide on that one.
Oh, well, Spencer, have you got anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to discuss?
No. If you're going to go to LBL, pack some bug spray.
Definitely.
I would like to say it was great seeing everybody. It was great meeting Bama and Moose, even if he did growl at me every single time he saw me. It was really good. It wasn't work or stressful or overloading. It was camping with friends, and there was the added advantage of, possible booger stuff being in the mix and everything. So I had a great time. I loved LBL. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it, and maybe it's blown out of proportion. Maybe there was a whole lot of people going there, and they've made whatever is there a little bit more quiet or whatnot. But I thought it was great. I've seen a lot of wooded area and everything, and I really liked it. I thought it was very nice. I'd like to go back again soon.
Larry, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I guess we could I don't know how to say this really.
Take your time.
I've got all night, don't I? But we don't want people to get offended because they're not invited or whatever. We try to keep the group small so we can go and get some good audio like we did. And it ain't nothing against anybody. It's just you get a certain number you want, and that's what you do. We've been out with other people, and we're going to go out with them again. We didn't exclude somebody because of nothing, and we didn't not invite somebody because of any reason. We just, Spencer was coming, and he was like, man, are you going to be able to make it? And I said, yes. And I'm bringing Debbie, and I'm pretty sure Mark and Shelly are coming. And Bama came, and we had us a good group at that point. So it's just hard to invite 20 or 30 people and get the kind of activity and things that we did.
Let me jump in and take some of the heat on this and try to explain this too. The original meet and greet was scheduled for this time.
Right.
The way it works at my house is I have to go by my wife's schedule. She had already scheduled it off several months in advance. So I had this weekend off to go to LBL before the virus and everything hit. Well, whenever the virus and everything hit, it caused Mark and Larry and all them to have to reschedule the meet and greet. I was already cleared to go on this weekend, and Bama and I have been communicating and talking about meeting up in either North Carolina or LBL. We had been since the beginning of this year, if not before that. And whenever the virus hit, we were talking about, well, you know, we're still going to go if we can. And I had the weekend off, and I can't reschedule because of my wife's schedule. So I simply told Larry and Mark, you know, hey, I'm going on this weekend. Larry, even though he worked all week, he was willing to accommodate me and meet me out there and like give me the guided tour and everything. And Debbie happened to be there with Larry. And I messaged Mark and Shelly, and I believe Larry did also. And it just kind of fell together at the last minute. I mean, people were throwing stuff in cars 2 days before this. This was not like a long, drawn-out plan thing. I want to go to the meet and greet. I want to meet everybody just like everybody else in the Beast guys do, and all that kind of stuff too. This was not an event where it got planned and we were secretly excluding people or anything like that. I don't want anybody to think anything like that.
Right.
It got thrown together at the last minute, pretty much.
And it
Well,
was great.
I don't think I got invited to it till about a week before it, so I wasn't even invited to come.
Yeah, your replacement fell out at the last minute.
Well, I don't hold that against you. And it's kind of like what Larry said, that in order to hopefully have good activity, you know, we want to keep the group small, because if you've got 15 vehicles that are pulling up to a spot, that just really blows your cover. But if you can cram everybody into 1 or 2 vehicles, then I think that it will be a much better experience for everybody. And that's what we want to do is to make sure. I mean, Spence drove 9 hours, and so I was just really hoping that we wouldn't get skunked. A lot of time we do get skunked, and it's just because that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh no, I brought my A game just for Spencer and Balance.
I brought
well, I guess we're going to start wrapping things up.
Uh-oh.
And Beast TV is just amazed at all of our new Facebook members. And Shelly is working on it. She's at a conference this weekend.
She's gluing.
Yeah, she gluing. So she is the one that's taking care of our Facebook page. So if you've sent an invite, just be patient, and she will go through everybody and add you to the group. We just want to make sure that you're not a robot, and because there is a lot of good information that we have on there about going out and boogering and how different tools that you can add to your arsenal of weapons that when you go out into the woods. And we've had 2 new people that have came on to learn the protocols of analyzing audio, and that's Michael and Judy, and we're in the process of training them, and we just want to thank them for taking that step forward and wanting to be able to add to this community. We also want to thank all of our new subscribers and faithful followers. Also, be sure to check out our field evidence videos and check out our sister channel, Beast of the Woods. That's Larry's channel, and you can jump on there at the end of this podcast and you will see a link how to get to Larry's channel. We do these podcasts and videos for you. And so if you want to help us out, click that like button for us, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. Larry and I would like to thank Sally for sending us the questions tonight while Shelly is out. And we always want to thank our moderators for keeping our chat room kid-friendly. Thanks again to each of you for watching, and we will see you again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.